All right, waiting for the AC to turn off. Hola. What's up, everybody? This is Espresso Part 2, the hard part. Last time we talked about kind of setting up a espresso recipe, getting your dose dialed in, your yield, your time, and learning how to manipulate those variables a little bit. And from that, kind of setting up like a template for a nice espresso recipe that you could use with a blend that's kind of meant for espresso, or something that's not too far off base from like a traditional espresso profile. Lots of chocolate, lots of nut, lots of like heavy body. Today we're gonna go through the hard part, which is basically just practicing. Practicing tasting, practicing developing your palate, and we're gonna talk about a couple of ways that you can do that without shredding your face, without like ripping your face off. Now I'm gonna be honest, you definitely have to taste a lot of coffee. Practice is key with dialing in more adventurous coffees. And there's ways to do it without just pulling shot after shot after shot of espresso and melting your face off, feeling sick, having to lie down with your eyes twitching. Yeah, I've done that before. Don't want to do it again. I don't recommend that you do it either. So here is how I would suggest going about dialing in a new coffee for espresso. Okay, so if I have time, and in this case I do, I like to start out away from the espresso machine and do a cupping. So, actually, hang on a second. Okay, that feels better. So, I've got two 8-ounce glasses, and I'm going to fill each with 9 grams of ground coffee. They should be grind medium, something like a kosher salt, not too fine, but also not anywhere near a French press setting. You want to be able to get a decent extraction out of these and be able to taste what the tasting notes are on the bag, or at least taste what the coffee has to offer. I start out by giving them a shake and giving them a quick smell before I add water. I'm just going to fill up to just below the top of these glasses. Pouring technique isn't super important, but I'm just doing a little wiggle motion, kind of like if you're pouring a rosetta, if you're into latte art. It's just a quick wiggle back and forth. Whatever it is, just be consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to wait 4 minutes, and while I'm waiting, I'm going to get in there and start smelling. Okay, so now it's time to wait. If you're doing this by yourself, then I guess you can do a little dance or something. Normally I'm doing this with other people, so this is a good time to chat about the coffees, chat about life, just enjoy the company of the people that are around you. But since there's nobody here, I guess I'm just gonna do whatever I'm doing. Okay, yeah. Alright, that was weird, so let's move on. My timer has just gone off. Normally, I would go straight into the break, but since I'm kind of doing this at my own pace and there's not really any rules, I'm going to take one last smell before I grab my spoon. And the break is basically just dragging your spoon across the top of the coffee. There's a big layer of gas that's sitting there at the top, kind of held together by all of the coffee grounds. And you'll see as I push this that all of those break apart and you get a nice burst of flavors and gases right in that moment. And this is something that happens only once during the cupping. For me at first, it took a long time to actually be able to smell anything here. I just kind of smelled water vapor and it just smelled like wet, and it took a while for me to start picking stuff up. But like anything, it just takes a lot of practice, and if you get stuck here or at any other phase of the cupping process, just keep practicing and eventually you'll start picking things up little by little. After the break, it's important to skim the top. There is still going to be that layer of kind of brown slush at the top. It's basically just gases, a lot of suspended little solids, kind of like the crema on top of espresso. It's going to add a lot of bitterness, and it's going to add some body to the coffee that you don't necessarily want in this context. So I've given this a couple minutes to cool, and now it's time to start tasting. So when we taste, what I like to do and what most people like to do when they're cupping is to get a little bit in their spoon and then slurp. Slurping can feel a little bit awkward, but trust me, if you go back and forth between just sipping gently and slurping, you're gonna have a totally different taste experience on the slurp versus the sip. Not that one is necessarily better than the other, but in this context, if you're trying to taste as much as you can and get a really good idea for what the coffee is gonna be like, the slurp is gonna help you a little bit more. So right as I started sipping on the coffee, the pecan came out for me in a big way. This is really toasty, nutty coffee. I had a hard time with the red apple at first. Once the coffee got cooler, that malic acidity started to present itself a little bit more. But in the beginning, it was super mellow, super muted, and not really presenting in a big way. The vanilla was definitely there too once it got to about warm, medium-ish hot, medium cold. Between like hot, warm, and cold, you're gonna taste different things. And that's because as coffee or whatever it is that you're tasting gets closer to the temperature of your own palate, then you're gonna be able to perceive flavors more accurately and more vividly. So if you're having trouble picking up those flavor notes, let's look at the flavor wheel and see if we can find them. Okay, let's see. Can we see? Can we see? How's this gonna work? Oh, this is hard. Okay, there we go. So let's see. Let's see if we can find red apple. Okay, so there's red apple, and you trace that back. It's kind of in this apple pear category, next to citrus, melon, grape, and part of this bigger fruit category. So if I'm having trouble finding red apple, I'm looking at fruit, and maybe it's something, maybe I'm picking up something that's a little bit different. Maybe it's that watermelon, or maybe it's honeydew or something else that's kind of close by, but not exactly red apple. People taste different things on the cupping table, and they're usually in a particular category, and there can be different flavor descriptors within that, and that's okay. Okay, let's look for pecan. So pecan's gonna be kind of on this other side. Let's see, sugary, sweet, no, nut, okay, nut. And we've got almond, hazelnut, pecan, cashew, peanut, walnut. And of course, these all taste very different, but this is a nice way to trace it back. Pecan, nut, and look at the areas around too. You got sweet, sugary, grain, cereal, roast, chocolate. Definitely in like a darker flavor spectrum, more sugars, more kind of Maillard reaction, that kind of like toasty, like umami flavor. Okay, what else? What was the last thing? Oh yeah, vanilla. Where is vanilla? Is that in spice? Spice, chocolate maybe? Dark chocolate, vapor spice. Where is vanilla? Okay, here it is, sweet and sugary. So vanilla, nougat, honey, butter, cream, marshmallow, sugarcane. Next to that you got milk chocolate, which typically does have a lot of vanilla in it. Another thing that has vanilla in it quite often, or has like a vanilla flavor, is like bourbon. Think of like those bourbon barrels, definitely get like a lot of like vanilla kind of notes out of that. So that could be something to think about if you're having trouble picking up vanilla. Anyways, it's handy to have one of these around, because if you're not using the bag, you can be like, okay, well, if this tastes kind of fruity to me, or actually, no, let's think about how I taste it. So I thought, okay, this tastes really nutty, but I can't quite place it. So you look at where nut is, and you can go and say like, okay, almond, no, not really. Hazelnut, definitely not. I hate hazelnuts. I know what they taste like. I want them to be far away from me at all times. Peanut, walnut, cashew, pecan. Oh, pecan, yeah, kind of tastes like pecan. And you can think of it that way. So hopefully that helps. Where was this thing? Oh, I see Okay, so once we get past cupping, we've tasted the coffee, we kind of have a general idea of what that coffee has to offer, then we can go to the espresso machine. I'm starting with a dose of 19.5, and I'm going to look for a yield of 35 and see how much time it takes for that to come out. Now this first shot didn't take very long, it was about 25 seconds, and it's got a lot of really good pecan flavor. I really am enjoying that, but as it cools, the acidity is really out of control. It's really tart, it's really kind of punching me in the face, and I don't really like that very much. So what I am going to do to try and mellow that out is increase the yield a little bit, going from 35 to 40, and we'll see what happens. The idea is that we'll have a little bit more water passing through the coffee and have an espresso that's a little bit bigger and has a little bit more flavor clarity because it's not quite as concentrated as the previous one. Okay, so we got this shot to come out. It ended up at 40 grams out in about 28 seconds, and it's much better, but there's just not a lot of flavor. Balance is good. The pecan is there, the apple's kind of there, but there's just like, I don't know. It's feeling kind of muted in general, like it's just sort of boring. It's a boring, balanced shot, but I want to get a little bit more out of it. At this point, I like the strength, I like the balance of flavors, and I just want to amp everything up a little bit. So I'm gonna tweak the grind a little bit finer, keep everything else the same. All right, here we go. So this was 19.5 in, 40 grams out in about 29 seconds. Okay, cool. So the red apple is really prominent now. It's actually really good. I don't want to spit it out, but it's like almost 4 o'clock. And this is the 4th espresso I've pulled, so yeah. A little bit brighter on like the very end that I would like, so I could probably push it a little bit further, but I'm really happy with this. I'm drinking this at like, oh hey sun, sun's out. I'm drinking this at kind of like a almost room temperature now. It's just like slightly warm. I guess I should say that Counterculture didn't send me this coffee. I just picked it up down the street because they sell it down the street, and it's good. This was a really good shot of espresso. I actually haven't really had a shot of espresso on my home machine that tasted this good in a while, so I'm pretty happy with myself. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty happy for the coffee, honestly. You know, it's not me, it's the coffee. The coffee does what it can do, and you know, I can either let it do that or I can let it not do that, right? So that's why you go through this whole process, because you don't want to get caught up on what the bag says, even though in this case, I thought the bag was pretty darn accurate. If you're searching for like an ideal coffee, you're probably not going to find it. You're going to find what that coffee has to offer. So you have to be good about casting away like your preconceived notions or like what your imaginary dream espresso is going to taste like, because it's usually not going to happen. You have to work with what you have, and hopefully you have something really tasty that will be able to express itself nicely like this coffee did, but you never know. You might end up with kind of hot rubbish, hot garbage water. I hate when that happens. All right, everybody, that's it for me on espresso. I hope you like this video and find it helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to share any of your experience dialing in espresso this way or another way. I'd love to hear about it. Please take a moment to like this video if you liked it. Please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.